Hey everybody, my name is Gerry, I'm from Wildlife. This is episode 180, can you believe it, of the Wildlife Photography Podcast. As you know, every 10 episodes is a Q&A, and also as you know, if you're watching this, that every 10 episodes, which is the Q&A, is also a video. I'm going back, if you missed everything up until now, to doing videos of the Q&As, because sometimes there's some cool stuff to drop in, and just to mix it up a bit. So, my flights for 2018, done. I've got, actually, let me just check for you here. I was walking back from passport control a couple of evenings ago when I arrived back from Kenya, and I had a kind of a sad moment thinking my travels for the year is done. Yes, a little bit tired, but honestly, I love the travel. And this is going to sound all messed up, but even airports and planes and the whole experience of it, I just love it. So I'll put this on the screen for you as well. Travel stats for the last year. So this is going back into 2017. Total trips, 21. Countries visited, 18. Distance traveled, 266,586 kilometers. That's the stats on my TripIt. So, yeah, it's been a hell of a year. And I've only got one small trip left to Mala Mala on 11 to 15 December. So I'll be sharing some stuff on content from there, and then it's done. The next time I get on a plane, unless something changes from now, will be when I head to the US. I think it's the 4th or 5th of February. From Monday, I'm going into that heavy, and that's my plan for the next 2 months. And yeah, I'm going to Boston, where I'm presenting a 2-day workshop, wildlife photography and urban jungle photography workshop. Same thing in Chicago, and then LA, which we're doing a travel show, the Adventure Travel Show. I've got 2 big presentations there. For those of you around there, I'd love to see you there. From there to New York City, 5 nights there, meetings, presentations, and just, and I've got 2 next tickets. Thanks, Deborah, that's awesome. Back home for, I think, a week, and then back, we're doing London. London is confirmed. Many of you are asking, London is confirmed. I go to Washington then, I meet the guys in San Francisco, where we do a travel show, more presentations. From San Francisco to Vegas for 2 nights. Anybody there, let's hook up. And then, what's the last stop? Oh, Dallas. Then I come back to South Africa for a day, and then it's back on safari. So, interesting times ahead, exciting times ahead. I've got a shitload of work to do, but it's exciting stuff, because yesterday we had in this very room, we had a very big strat meeting as to where everything's going. And the exciting thing, all of it was great. It was necessary for us to kind of just get together and talk about stuff and get it moving in the right direction. Again, we spoke about vision, and one of the questions for today has to do with vision. But the vision of when we started Wildlife many, many moons back is the goal we had at that stage to create something. We've passed that already. So it's a very interesting thing to readjust your goals all the time and keep going. But with the team we have and the new people starting, I'm super excited. For now, though, let's get into questions. Q&A, I had a lot. Now, Al voiced over the questions for me. I'm actually only going to do, I think, 9. Is it 9? 9 or 8, because there's a lot over here. The rest will be bounced to number 190. And then, like I said in previous episodes, I am going to try and do episode 200 with as many of the team as possible. We have got a year-end function. I'm not sure that's going to work, just taking everything worth recording. But I'm going to try and make 200 a slightly bigger one than usual. Anyway, for now, let's get into your questions. Here we go.
Mark Farrington is interested in an update on your thoughts on the Olympus EM1 Mark II and 40 to 150 as well as 300 Pro lenses for game drive photography.
Mark, it's a question I'm getting a lot, and I am planning to do a big blog post on exactly that. The Olympus OMD EM Mark II with the 40 to 150 2.8 and the 300 f4 for wildlife photography. Now, let me start off by saying I believe any camera can be a wildlife photography camera, even this. It depends on your outcome. So I've now shot that exact kit for just over a year and 3-4 months maybe. And now this is African wildlife from midday to pitch dark to spotlight. I've done Svalbard. I've done the rainforest of Canada, the Great Bear Rainforest. I have been to South Luangwa in the heat. I have been to, Svalbard I mentioned. I've been to Borneo. And every single one of those were great. Absolutely great. The only place where I struggled with that kit was in Borneo. And not all the time, specifically shooting gibbons. Now, if you haven't seen a gibbon move, go and Google it. They look like little hairy Spider-Man things, yeah? And they swing. They're the only true arboreal monkey or ape, so they never come onto the floor. They just swing and jump and throw themselves around. Now, very early mornings when they move around, they are very fast moving. You're shooting up against a bright sky and dark dappled foreground. It's a dark subject against that. They move behind things and in front of things. So that was one of the few instances that I actually wished that I had something like a D5 or a 1DX2, which the strength is tracking and low light shooting. People will immediately say, yeah, but we knew the what's it called, the mirrorless was going to be bad with low light. No. I've shot it up to 6,400, very usable, amazing images. I think you need to reconcile for yourself, why are you doing this? If you are doing photography because you're getting paid for it, or you're entering competitions, you're doing big-ass prints, I'm talking the kind you see in Times Square type vibe, then maybe it's not for you. However, I would be willing to bet that most of you watching this would benefit from the mirrorless system for a couple of reasons. For me, the travel is super easy. Holy hell, if you do one trip a year and you struggle with your cameras, imagine doing 42, right? It is so easy. It is so small and it is so phenomenal. The ease of use in the field. So I've had a couple of people, especially older people and some of the ladies saying, can they try it? So I'm shooting a 300 f4, which is theoretically a 600 equivalent. They've got lenses like this. They are struggling. They need beanbags and gimbals and what have you. And I'm like one hand holding, shooting over the top just with a 600. It is so easy. And I think there's still a certain belief within the industry that bigger is better. The bigger lenses must be better, right? It's not, it's how you use it. Sorry. But I find it phenomenal. The raw files hold up amazingly well. So for me right now, if I had to go and purchase my own camera right now, and I had a set budget, I think this kit, and for new photographers coming out that's looking for something, definitely look at this. I think, if I recall, there's another question later on here also about mirrorless, but I think it's a changing game. The game is changing, and what I've seen from the Olympus system, even though it's a 4/3 system, the raw files are great. I printed it big up to A0, so that holds, but for me it was the experience of shooting. The one thing that kicks ass completely on this system is Pro Capture. Now, if you don't know what it is, imagine a bird taking off, right? You would wait for this thing. As soon as he takes off, you would kind of shoot and follow. And normally the first two shots you kind of fluff. Pro Capture allows you to focus on the bird while you are focusing. The camera, the Olympus OMD, right into buffer, 35 images. If you don't take the shot, nothing happens. However, if you do take the shot, it starts recording from when you start shooting, plus the previous 35. You bird photographers out there should have your spidey senses tingling right now, because it's ridiculous. You basically get before, as he's preparing to take off, and the takeoff itself, right? So Pro Capture for me is phenomenal, and it's something that unless the technology changes dramatically, Nikon, Canon, DSLRs cannot do. Any mirrorless system, theoretically, because it's software driven, should be able to do this. So, short version, my thoughts on the OMD EM1 Mark II, 40 to 150 and 300 for game drive photography. I think it's phenomenal. I really do.
Haley is interested on your thoughts on the use of drones in wildlife photography.
Haley, this is a question, it has come up a couple of times in the past, and it's going to keep on coming up because it's going to become more of a problem in the future. I could give you my short answer and say drones should not be allowed for wildlife photography. However, some people out there are creating pretty interesting imagery with it. I think this whole question is going to come down to ethics and the ethical behavior of the photographer slash pilot, whatever it's called, of that drone. We've sat in the Mara in a lion sighting, our vehicle and a little minivan in front. Little hand comes out the window. I shit you not, true story. Little hand comes out the window, small drone, looks like a DJI Spark, right? Slowly takes off straight up. We watch this thing, and we're like, Mama, what the fuck's going on? What are you doing? So this thing goes up across, and they come down on a pride of lions that we were watching. These things look up, and they just scatter. Right. Now, if, for example, you could, on a private reserved's launch drones and photograph wildlife from a distance. The aerial stuff would be phenomenal. I was on a hot air balloon recently in Kenya, and we did phenomenal aerial photography from there. Didn't influence animal behavior at all. So if it's possible that a drone could do the same without affecting behavior, I don't have a problem with it. But at this stage, I think it's almost impossible. These things, even I have a DJI Spark. I've got a drone. I love it for landscape photography. I love it for going on holiday and just playing. I've yet to photograph wildlife with it because even at a high distance, these things make a shitload of noise and it affects the animals. Now, it's the same ethics from a wildlife photography in a vehicle or on foot point of view. The moment you affect animal behavior, you as the wildlife photographer fail. So now, with a drone, people think, oh no, but I'm not going close to me, the human, so let me do that. No, you're still failing. So I think it has incredible visual potential. I don't think most people are ethically mature enough to deal with it.
Devin Rogers would like your take on the current lineup of mirrorless systems and how they stack up for wildlife photography. Are there still enough advantages with the well-established Canon and Nikon ecosystems to retain wildlife photographers? Have you been tempted by the likes of Sony or Fuji?
Devin, okay, so to pick up from the previous question on the OMD, the Canon and Nikon DSLRs, in my mind, because both of them now launched their mirrorless systems, and both of them make very good arguments. I was at Cape Town recently, and I just checked in for a flight back to Johannesburg. As I got to Mug and Bean, the coffee shop, the Roger Machin, who is the Canon's product manager for South Africa, arrived at the same place and had breakfast together. He showed me the new Canon mirrorless. We played around with it proper. It makes a phenomenal argument. I think there's still two industries at this stage that's going to get stuck on DSLRs. I think that's wildlife photography and sports photography. However, that's at the very top end. Like I said with the OMD question, the majority of you, most of you watching this, can very happily shoot a mirrorless camera for any wildlife, for anything. I think people get stuck on the idea. They hear things and they headline read, and they'll read that, for example, I don't know, the new, what did you mention here? Sony Fuji. The new Fujifilm is not great at tracking things in low light. They don't read the rest of the article or the review. They just go with that because that feeds their own insecurities of, oh no, I can't go there because I need a DSLR. You're probably fucking it up as it is with your DSLR and not getting proper shots. So now you're thinking, well, if I jump to mirrorless, it's going to be even worse. If you are a good photographer, if you're a half-decent photographer, and you know how to manage shutter speed, aperture, ISO, you understand composition and the creative, which is way more important anyway, you can create good wildlife images with any camera. It sounds like I'm repeating from the first question. But have I been tempted by Sony and Fujifilm? I think the Sonys offer some very interesting options, and I would love to get my hands on one to play with it. Fujifilm, I must be honest, I tried Fujifilm, I think it was an X-T2, way back, 2 years, 3 years, just on camera. It didn't feel right in my hands. The OMD feels like a DSLR. The Sony, from what I've seen and kind of just howled, feels like a DSLR. The X-T2, I don't know if it's changed. But it didn't sit well with me, didn't like it. And maybe it's ergonomics, but Sony definitely intrigues me. And does the DSLR system have enough staying power, if you will, to maintain photographers? For now, I think yes. Long term, I think no. If you look at both Nikon and Canon have done, they've got the converters in order to take your big DSLR lenses and stick it on the mirrorless system. Now people say that's stupid. Why would you want a small mirrorless camera with a big lens? It's just a branding, marketing exercise, because if they didn't have that, people would be so much more slow to jump into the system. If I know I've got 10 Nikon lenses, I can then just buy the camera. I can still use them, and in time, as new lenses become available, then I can do that. So I think it's going to be interesting. I do think anybody denying that mirrorless photography is the future, I think they're making a very big mistake. And if they don't keep an eye on it, they're going to be left far, far behind.
Alistair's Photo Spot recently had a sighting on one of his trips to Botswana and Zimbabwe, and would like to get your advice on some ideas on how to deal with haze, given the fact that his camera did not perform as well as he thought it might have in low light conditions.
Alistair's Photo Spot, so could you please ideas of how to deal with haze. Now, the first, I don't have the image here, so I don't know exactly what you're talking about. But the important thing in a situation like that is you need to recognize it. You can't, after the fact, realize, oh, now I need to fix something. You can't polish a turd, right? If it's a rubbish image coming out, you can't fix it. So in the field, you need to recognize for yourself, there's buffalo, what did you say, buffalo, hey? Yeah? There's a bunch of buffalo, and there's dust or haze. You need to, at that time, expose correctly to capture as much of the information, raw information as possible. Then you need to shoot for processing. If you look at your sliders in Lightroom, like clarity and dehaze, if you start playing with those two, so my short answer to you, Alistair's photo spot, would be play with the dehaze and the clarity sliders. See what happens. You're going to see incredible things happen. The more you do that, the more then, when you're in the field, you'll see, oh, okay, I should do X, Y, and Z. But it's very difficult to shoot something not knowing, and this is part of the growth process for all of us, to get to Lightroom then and start playing around. If you have the image, please send it to me, because maybe we can do a small little Lightroom tutorial on it. You say you were disappointed by your images. That's a whole different discussion as far as what you saw with your eyes and what you captured. Because when you see with your eyes, there's a certain amount of emotion involved as well. When you sit down 4, 3, 5 weeks later and look at the image, there's no emotion. You're sitting in a cold office or a home looking at the image. The photographer who wins, is the one who's able to make someone feel what they felt as if they're in the field. So maybe going off on a bit of a rabbit hole here, but I would look at the dehaze slider, I would look at the clarity slider, and then depending on the image, if I've got something in my mind, but then I would use brushes to push and pull the different areas forward to create depth in that image. But send me the image, Alice's photo, and maybe I can just do a recap of that in episode 190.
Garcia would like to understand how viewing photographs on mobile devices may impact the photographic industry.
Garcia, I think you're 100% correct, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's happening already. That I ask people on Safari all the time, why are you taking this image? Why are you on this trip? Many of them do not have a website. Many of them do not have a portfolio. Many don't enter competitions. Many don't want to make books or do an exhibition. They just want to post on Instagram. So those people that have connected the dots, that Instagram is without a doubt right now, as I'm recording this, the place that every photographer has to be because of the attention that's on there. Once they connect that, they're going to easily just connect the other small dots that says a close-up portrait of a leopard is going to get you much more attention, likes, and engagement than, for example, a wide-angle landscape with an impala in it. So, because people are going for that and they don't have any other goals or direction for the photography, yes, they end up shooting for mobile. Now, it's a sad thing because, to me, some of the best images don't work on Instagram. There's nothing wrong with a nice leopard picture, but blah, blah, there's so many of them. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Nobody cares. So, if you're going to shoot wide and get these incredible landscapes, if you then put it on your phone, it's this big. Someone looks, it doesn't stop someone from swiping. Yet, if you were to blow that thing up to A0 or bigger and put it on a wall, it is spectacular. So, I think, yes, I think the trend is going to be that photographers are heading towards and shooting for Instagram. The problem is, if you get romantic about the platform, you're going to lose because Instagram is going to change. Maybe it'll die one day. Any of you remember MySpace? Oh, MySpace is going to live forever. Facebook comes, bye-bye MySpace. These things happen. So Instagram right now is just a platform, but this thing will stay for the future. It's going to be built in eventually. But yes, I think people are shooting for Instagram, and that's okay. I do, however, think, and I said this on my photography workshop now, if you could reverse engineer your final goal, if your goal is to get 100,000 followers on Instagram, then go for it. Shoot the close-up portrait, show the gore. You want to get engagement on Instagram, shoot gore, blood and guts and snot dripping and whatever. People engage, I'm not going to say they don't like it, but they engage with it. However, if your end goal is to actually publish a coffee table book, then reverse engineer backwards what it is that you need to shoot and to do to get there, and share some of it onto Instagram. So I think the natural evolution is everything is towards this thing. And yes, I do think most photographers are heading in that direction and shooting for Instagram. I do, however, think most of them that are doing that do not have a secondary goal or a primary goal, and they could benefit greatly from getting something else other than Instagram to be the goal for their images.
Nick Wade's question is stemming from the video that was circulated recently of lions that were trying to hunt a young rhino calf, and that hunt was disturbed by vehicles in East Africa that tried to drive away the lions from hunting the rhino. So Nick would like to know if what they were doing was wrong and what your feelings are on that particular scenario, whether or not those vehicles should have or shouldn't have intervened in preventing that young rhino calf from being attacked by lions.
Nick, okay, this is a question that always brings very polarized opinions. Now, I'm not sure of the video. I do think I saw a clip of it. If I remember correctly, it was in an Ngorongoro crater where a rhino calf was on its own, lions were trying to hunt it, and then the vehicles kind of try to block it off. Where do we draw that line? Let me give you another scenario. We were in the Mara now recently, early morning, driving up towards the Tanzanian border, beautiful golden light. Jimmy, our guide, says, oh look, a cheetah. Very excited, we drive to this cheetah. And it was more skinny than usual, and this thing's walking along, and then it tries to go through a dip, and it like half stumbles, and then it just falls down, which is unusual. So it looked like out of its head. Something was not right. So we phoned Parks Board, the KWS, they come and they check it out, and eventually they got a Thompson's gazelle and gave it to the thing, because they said it's just hungry. We had a very long discussion in our vehicle, is that right or wrong? Should they interfere? Because it's an open system, there's no fences, right? There's no fences, so those things can move in and out. Is this natural selection? Is that cheetah dying because it's an inefficient hunter? Was it bitten by a snake? Shit, sorry for you, you were bitten by a snake. It happens. The moment you put a fence around an area, to me it changes, because then you have you've changed the natural order of things, and you have to manage what happens inside there in order to keep it as natural as possible. But there's management required. Were these guys correct in saving a baby rhino? I know some of you are sitting, listening or watching this saying, yeah, 100%. Okay, cool. What if there's so many things here. Was that baby sick? Did its mom die and now it's on its own? Because then it's going to starve a slow, long death, right? Nature is cruel. It is not. We try to break things down and rationalize it. Nature doesn't work that way. Those part of lions, people think, oh, how dare they kill a baby black rhino? Well, it's what they do. If they don't do that, they starve. So I don't have the answer for this. I really don't. But I do think it's important that people on the polarized edges of this discussion need to come closer to the middle. Because if we're talking conservation specifically, yes, rhinos have an issue. They're being poached and their numbers are going down. Now you find a scenario here where the rhino is being hunted by lions. Do we help it because of the conservation side of it? But then you might influence the lions. One of them might get hungry and die. Maybe a bit extreme, but you know what I mean. So it's the same with finding an injured animal. Do you help it? Like this cheetah I spoke about. So we will save a cheetah if it's hungry, but what about a topi or a Thompson's gazelle or a scrub hare? At what point do we say, okay, these ones we'll save, you're not getting saved? It's a tough one. In a managed system, it'll probably come down to what's the endangered species. There's just too many questions here. I do think it's worth us having a bit of a look at this down the line as a forum discussion, but it always polarizes. So, Nick, let me try and give you my answer in a short version. Do I think it was the right thing to do? No, I don't think so. However, do I feel it was the right thing to do? Yes. So my mind is telling me no, it's not the right thing because it's a natural way of things. However, my heart says yes, we need to save it. It's the best I can do for now.
Jakey88 would like to know whether or not a low season for safari in certain areas should put him off booking for that particular time of year.
Jakey, this is probably the best question I've had this whole year, because so many people out there planning their first safari see the situation of there's a peak season price or high season, then there's shoulder season and low season. Now, because there's a price difference most of the time, not always, most of the time, it's perceived that the low season is worse. You're not going to see as much. Not at all. I've had low season safaris in pretty much every African park I've been to. I'm just trying to think. Mana Pools, for example, last year, January, most camps closed down then because it's low season. Yet, it was spectacular. It wasn't the Mana Pools but it was still an amazing experience. The Masai Mara Triangle, where our camp is based, the peak season is from end of June, kind of beginning July through mid-October. I was there now 3-4 days ago. On 18 November, we got a crossing. It shouldn't be happening. Let's take the crossing out of that. And this is low season. We still saw Big Five, plus hunts, plus kills. It is incredible. So, if you're planning your first safari and you don't have very specific requirements as to what you want to see, i.e. you want to see a river crossing or elephants standing on their back legs in Mana Pools or the calving season, for example, down in Tanzania, if you are not stuck on the small detailed criteria of what you want to see and you just want to have a kick-ass wildlife experience, definitely consider the low season. So much so, we believe in it so much so that we've taken our camp, the Wild Mara camp, which only ran in migration time, and if we've extended that to beginning June and end November, because we see so much value in the off-season. You cannot go wrong unless, like I said, unless you want a very specific moment or a very specific shot. Then maybe it's not for you. But for the majority of people, if you've been to a place in high season, try it in the low season, you'll be surprised. If you've never been before, 100% consider low seasons. It will still blow your mind.
Joni was wondering how a safari guest can go into a group safari situation and not feel intimidated by the other people on that particular trip with you. She understands that everyone is on their own photographic journey, but understandably it is hard not to compare yourself when you see the images others are creating.
Joni, I think this is a very important question, and it comes back, and it's not just on a trip where you don't feel confident in your own ability. It's in general. Creativity and the creative art, of which wildlife photography is one, is there are no set rules. So I might shoot something in a certain way. You think to me, oh, this is horrible, my shot, because you wouldn't shoot that. Then you see someone who creates great work, and you think, oh, I want to create that. Now you start questioning yourself. The same thing happens online. You look at other people's work on Instagram, and you think, yo, they're so good, I'm never going to be able to do that. The reality is that there will, and this is important for all of you photographers out there, there will always be people and photographers who are better than you. But there will always also be photographers who look up to you. Always, regardless of where you fit in, regardless of your skill level. If you're posting stuff online, there is at least one other person who thinks, shit, Joni has great images. You might look up to, I don't know, myself, Andrew Marlin, Nicklin, France Lansing, whatever, and think, these guys are so amazing, I'm never going to touch them. But there are people that look up to your work. I think we need to remind ourselves that this whole thing is a journey. You can't compare your chapter 2 to my chapter 20. But someone who's on chapter 1 will look at you and think, wow, she's great. So I think it's just, we need to remind ourselves of why we do this. You're not doing this to compete with others. You're doing it for you. So use the people above you as inspiration. You might not feel confident, but remind yourself that there are people that look up to your images. Any image of yours, go and look at it online. If there's 2 likes, not that it means anything, but I'm just trying to rationalize this. If there are 2 likes, it means 2 people looked at your work and said, hey, that's cool. I might get 5,000 likes on an image. Someone else might get 150,000 likes. It's all in the scale of things. You need to see that as an opportunity to grow. So I'm going to say it one more time. Wherever you are in your photographic journey, remember this. There will always be photographers who you see as better than yourself, but also remind yourself that there are also photographers who look up to you as a photographer. Remind yourself of that. Sit back, enjoy the journey, and let it just play out. That's the fun part of it. And I think the reason, Joni, why you felt more confident in Africa was because it was just you and I. We had a private trip, so I don't shoot, I'm shooting for me like on the side, but we were focusing on your work, so that was the main thing. And the stuff you created was insane. Then you sit in a general or a scheduled departure, there's other people, it was a different place you haven't shot yet, you start comparing. It's natural. But just focus on your own work and enjoy the journey. Don't compare chapter 2 to 20. That's all I have.
And last but not least, from LR4 handle, how can I learn about vision as I'm starting out in photography? How do you learn how and why one shot will be better than the other?
Okay, Laurie, how can I learn about vision? Now, we had a discussion yesterday in the office as well about kind of the goals. We have certain products. I'm out there doing a certain thing, trying to pull us forward. It's because, in my mind, I see potential out there. So, for me, now I want to bring it back to photographic vision now, but vision is something that, how do you say this? You almost have to believe it before you can see it. So, from a photographic point of view, people are called visionaries because they work on something and they go in a direction that while they're busy, people think, what the hell are they on about? Yet, when they reach their final goal, then suddenly it's like, he's brilliant. Okay, so that's the interesting thing. I think from a photographic vision point of view, you need to think of, and the reason why I chose this question is, I think there's value in trying to train your photographic mind. Vision from a photographic point of view comes from your photographic mind and that little photographic voice in the back of your head that when you hold your camera is talking to you all the time, right? The more you talk to that voice and the more you let it talk, the more you listen to it, the more you stimulate your photographic mind, the better you would be at developing some kind of vision. We're going to Africa for the first time next year. I've got a private guided trip with you next year. You've never been. Now, you cannot and should not expect to create these insane images off the bat on day one. Your vision, photographically, from the moment you and I meet in the Masai Mara next year, will grow day by day because there's new stimulus. However, if you're open to it, there are so many photographers who are not open to vision, who are not open to change because they get stuck in rules. So what I would suggest for you, how do you teach vision? I would say to you, go and look at all of my images from the Masai Mara because it's super diverse. There's slow motion stuff, there's landscapes, there's portraits. Look at them and sit with a glass of wine, sit with a whole bottle of wine and look through the images and decide what you like. Because that's where it starts. Your vision will not be something, and you're not going to go down the path of following a vision if it doesn't excite you. So the first step photographically would be to find out what it is that you like. Because from a photography point of view, if you're starting from zero, find out what you like. Get that bottle of wine and look through as many Masai Mara images as possible. Do it even a level deeper, double down. Create a folder on your desktop and save those images in there from other people so that you can look through that. Because the more you look through those images, by the time you then get to the Mara and you see these magical, vast open plains, it's not going to be like, holy shit, what am I looking at? Well, it is, because you can't get away from that. It's still going to be that. But your photographic voice is going to say, ooh, I remember this, let me try that. Ooh, I saw that Gerry took this shot, let's try this. That's the start of the process. Then, once you go through and you get comfortable with listening to your photographic voice, your vision will develop. You will then, every evening, sit and look at your own images and go through it, and you'll say, ooh, I like this, I like this. The next day, you're going to like something similar. And eventually, the more you do this, the more it'll grow. The more your vision will grow. That when you then get back to New York City, where you stay after your Mara trip, you're going to sit back 5 months after the trip, one Sunday morning, have a cup of coffee. Speaking of, have a cup of coffee. And you're going to look back at those images, and some things will stand out. Maybe you like the close portraits. Maybe you like the golden light. Maybe you like the creative stuff I'm going to make you play with. Then your vision has something to touch onto. If you just say, I want a photographic vision, figure out what you like first. Because if you know what you like, you know what to execute against in order to start the path towards a photographic vision for yourself. How do I learn why and how one shirt will be better than the other? That's what I'm going to do for you, because I spoke about something on my wildlife photography workshop now, which I'll end off with here, of a good image versus a successful image. How do you know what image is good? That depends on you. I can take the most creative, visionary, slow motion image in the world ever. You might look at it and think, what the fucking drugs is he on? What's wrong with him? Because it doesn't speak to you. So I need to then ask myself as the artist, is this a good image? Well, I think so because it's mine, but more importantly, is it a successful image? If you could give someone or show someone a successful image, yes, you're on the right track. For example, if I do wildebeest running down the river, I pan them and it's this blur of things, but you can kind of get what it is. I think it's amazing because I made it. You might look at it and think, what the hell was he on? But is it a successful slow motion image of a crossing? That's a yes-no answer. Yes, it is. It shows you a crossing in slow motion. Is it good? That's going to depend on who you ask. That's also the problem with online. When you put it out there, you get all these no, yes, like it, don't hate it, whatever. Good is for you, successful is for everybody. That to me works. And I mean, this particular discussion on good versus successful was about an hour and a half lecture in this workshop I just did. So I'm just scratching the surface, but don't worry about what's good or not. For you, as a new photographer, don't worry about, are you good enough? Are you successful enough? What is my vision? I don't know where to start. Here's the catch. Listen, just start. Just pick up a camera, head out there and start making images, and the rest, with my help, will fall in place. I promise you it will. And down the line, after 17 safaris, 4 years from now, you and I can start discussing where your vision is going from there, because then you'll have one. Cool. I think that's it. Guys, thank you so much. I have a whole bunch more of questions, but like I said, I'm going to drop that into episode 190, plus any other ones that you send through. So if you have wildlife photography related questions, send them to me, Gerry, Gerry, at wildeye.co.za. I'll put it at the bottom here. And send me your questions. I would love to include them. And then 190, 10 episodes from now is the next Q&A. Some of the upcoming episodes that I've recorded already, I met with Johan one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning at the fire in the Mara now, because we were there together. We never see each other. He stays in Nelspruit, I stay in Johannesburg. He's actually moving here next year, January, to come be in the office more. Great commitment on him, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen from that. Watch this space. Catch up with him. We speak about a lot of stuff, from social media to wildlife to guiding. Then I spoke to Francis, who's our barman in the Mara. I started speaking about kind of what he does and how he does it. But we digressed, and it became a very interesting one to me, because we spoke about him building schools in Maasai land. So it became kind of a deep one for me personally, but I'm going to share that with you, and I'm going to ask for help on that one when we get there. And then the other one I did also was with Dixon. It was also an early morning, 4:15. I met him at the fire in the Mara, and I had a chat with him just about things in general. And in that one, we shared very, very exciting news. Some of you know what it is, but in that one, we break it and we give you the official answer, if you follow on Instagram, what the secret is we've been speaking about. And I am so excited for this, I cannot even explain to you. So those are some of the episodes upcoming. The other one that I want to do, and this is on the back of my wildlife photography workshop, is the technical variables in wildlife photography. Are you using it as a tool or as a goal? Think about it, because it's very, very important. For now, though, it's Friday morning. I'm going to get to work. I'm going to get this video and podcast live. And I will see you all in the next episode. Guys, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. And I look forward to hearing from your questions, comments, anything that you have. It's always great hearing from you. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. I'll see you guys next time.